Hey guys, welcome to a watercolor tutorial. My name is Kenzie and I'm going to be painting with you today this fall floral. I love all things fall, all things floral, which is why I chose this one, and I hope you guys like it. Let's go over some supplies. I have my 3 paint brushes. I have my size 12, 8, and 4, and I love these brushes because they have a very pointed tip. I have 2 water mason jars right here. I have my tapping cloth and I have my mixing palette right here, and these are my Winsor Newton paints. There we go, now it's on screen. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna play around with some fall colors. We have some florals, some greeneries, and I'm really excited about this one. So if you subscribed to my channel, you will see that I already painted this, and these are like a bunch of different pumpkins, and we just built up lots of layers. So what we're gonna do differently with this one is we're gonna do our contrasting color first and then layer on top. Okay, so the contrasting color or complementary color of orange is blue. So I'm gonna put my shadow colors down first. So I'm using my size 12 brush here, and I'm gonna shadow with a mix of like my indigo and my normal blue. So I wanna have up here be automatically darker, and you'll see as soon as I put this down, I have a harsh line. I don't love harsh lines, so with my other brush, I'm gonna touch just the edges to blend that out. Bringing it down, so wherever I see that there's a harsh line, I'm gonna blend it out just like that. Another way that you can do this is actually just by applying water first. And while that's wet, and this is called the wet on wet technique, see how it's just gonna spread and blend naturally and just bleed. So now I'm going in with my other brush that doesn't have any paint, and I can move around this color to have a very soft blend to it. Okay, so I'm gonna work in sections here. So I don't wanna go right next door to these ones, because as you just saw, if I start painting over here, all of the colors are going to just start kind of bleeding and blending everywhere. So I'm going to skip and start over here. So because this one's already further back, it's already going to be naturally darker than the ones that are up front. And I also want this to be like my highlighted area as well. You know, I'm going to bring this up just a little bit. Moving around, trying not to have any harsh lines. Moving it up. Okay. And I want to make sure that I'm leaving white space. If you're not familiar with what white space is when you just let the paper be your highlight. So you'll see I'm not completely covering everything. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tap down here and have this just be slightly darker than the rest of it. So the technique that I'm using right now, which is just moving my paint around my page, is called alla prima. It's basically when you're moving and manipulating paint directly on your page. Okay, cool. Oh, I don't know why it kind of spread here. Let me just fix that. Okay, cool. So now I'm gonna go over and do it over here. Get rid of any type of paint. And I'm also gonna do the wet on wet technique. I like that best for what we're doing right now. See, I'm getting a harsh line right here, so I'm just gonna blend it out. Okay, perfect. All right, let's do this. That's pretty dark, so I am just gonna scoop and drag the color. And up here would be pretty dark as well at the top. blend this line out real quick. All right, and let's just repeat on the other side. So these are dry now, so I'm able to paint. And if they do touch, I'll just kind of layer on top, which you'll see in a sec when I put this down. So right here, you'll see that when I'm overlapping a little bit, I have a line now, and that's what I wanted. I wanted there to be a line that kind of separates these pumpkins. Versus having everything just kind of bleed and blend together. All right, oops. Did not get all of the paint off there. You'll see how it's starting to puddle a little bit. That just means I have too much water. So I just gotta tap my cloth to get rid of some of that. Okay. And then on the back, it would be pretty dark around this part too. And I'm doing one on dry here, which basically means I have my wet paint on my brush and the paper is dry. So that's why you see lots of harsh lines, because of this technique right here. So I'm just using water on my brush and I'm touching the very edges and just blending it out a bit. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna let this dry and then we can come back to it with our orange. Okay, so now that this is dry, I can apply my first layer of orange. So I actually already have an orange here mixed. So I'm just gonna mix a little bit of red and yellow together. So here's my yellow. A little bit of red. And I'm gonna apply my first layer. I'm going to try and stick with the same type of technique that I've been doing all along, trying to just keep the center as light as possible so that I can have a highlight. Using a different brush to just kind of scoop up the center, prevent any harsh lines. touching up different points. Okay, and then doing the exact same thing on the other side right here. Remember, we're wanting to skip around a little bit. I can even lift and scoop a little bit of highlight right here to make it lighter. I need more orange. I gotta mix a decent amount of orange here. I'm gonna dry this. Actually, I got a line right here. Okay, I'm gonna dry this. Okay, let's do the other side. I just don't want my hand smudging everywhere. And I'm trying to stay in the lines as much as I can. And just repeating on the other sides as well. And I'm just going to be blending out this highlight right here with just water. I am blending out this harsh line now with just water. And back here too. I'm just going to cover all of it. And bring it all the way down. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to dry this. Okay, so I really like how this is turning out so far, so I definitely do want to incorporate a little bit more orange to this pumpkin. So I'm just mixing up a lot more vibrant orange, less water, so less of a wash. And I'm just gonna do another layer on top. We're just repeating exactly what I just did with the water around the highlight area. I'm gonna do another layer down here as well. But this time I'm not getting as close to the highlight, like I'm just staying towards the top and the sides and the bottom. I'm just trying to crisp up some of my lines here at the bottom. And I'm gonna dry this. Okay. Again, just adding a bit more layer to it. Bring it up, but not all the way, especially the bottom. The bottom should definitely be a lot darker and then the tops. Gonna mix more orange again. This orange is going so fast. Okay, and this one now. Just blending it out. Any harsh lines that we see. I'm actually going to add this more reddish orangish color to this pumpkin, as the side of the pumpkin as well, just a little bit. Just blending it out with some water up here. I can do my tops. And my last little section of my pumpkin is this one right here. And trying to blend it out. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. I'm really happy with how this has turned out. So I'm gonna dry this so I can move on to my next portion. Okay, so this already looks like a pretty realistic pumpkin. So for me, if I wanna make it a little bit more realistic, so you gotta make sure everything is dry for the wet on dry technique. And I'm just gonna come in and do just little lines. And I'm using my size 4 brush, and I'm using not that much water. And I'm just gonna create a little bit of texture to parts of my pumpkin. And I feel like this would really bring my pumpkin to life. And keeping in mind that when I'm doing my texture, when I'm in my lighter part, I want to use a lighter color as well. When I'm going in with my darker parts, I want to go in and use a little bit of a stronger pigment on my brush. We don't have to go crazy. Okay. So I'll blend this part in just a little bit. Okay, so now for the top part of my pumpkin, I'm gonna bring in a kind of mixture of green, brown, and a hair of dark brown. And I'm gonna go in and just create some of my first layer with that greenish, brownish mix. And while it's still wet, I can go in and just touch different points with that darker, more pigmented color. And I'm gonna dry it. Okay, so the same thing that we've done with our pumpkin, it's just gonna take a lot of layering for this. So let's get into that part. So just using little lines and streaks going up, I'm just gonna layer by layer darken up my pumpkin. So with the layering as well, to keep in mind that you don't want to completely cover each layer. So you want to see how I'm leaving some gaps. You want to let each kind of layer shine through. And that's how you get a really nice effect. Okay, so I'm happy with this, so I'm gonna dry it. And notice how I'm starting with that lighter shades and working my way up. If you paint with acrylic, I find that it might be a little bit trickier for you to do this part. When I do a lot of my in-person workshops, people always say when they paint with acrylic, it's a lot trickier to do with watercolor because you want to start building your light base first. Because if you go too dark with watercolor, you can't really layer on top of it, right? So it gets a lot trickier. I'm gonna add a little bit more green. Okay, so I feel pretty good about this as well. So now we're gonna be moving on to the kind of floral-y piece to it. So I'm gonna be focusing on, instead of mixing cooler, oh, I got some paint right here. I'm just gonna shimmy this away. Quickly just use some water on your brush and shake it away. But the problem is if you start to do this too much, you'll start to rip your page. I got a little bit of smudge over here too. Okay, cool. So like I said, so I'm gonna be mixing up a little bit more of a warmer green. So I am actually just gonna use this brownie greeny mix and just add more sap green to it. I like that it'll already kind of be a nice army, very natural looking green. Following the lines of the green, I'm gonna come up and apply some pressure, trying to stay within my lines. It does not have to be perfectly in the lines. Okay, so while this is still wet, I can actually go in and add a little bit of green to this orange that I already have, and I can tap different points just to give it a little bit more texture. And a little bit more depth to it. So coming in. This is giving more fall vibes with that orange mix in it. Okay, so I think that looks really pretty, and I'm going to kind of repeat what I just did on this side. So notice how I did about 1 or 2, and then I would plonk in this color. So I don't want to completely cover all of this in my first green color because it might dry. And if I go in and touch this while it was wet, it would just kind of sit on top and not be a more natural blend when it dries. So I'll just do 1 or 2 leaves. Before touching and blotting it. Okay. So I'm going to come in and mix a little bit of red into my green, and I am going to apply a mix. It's a little bit too brown for me, so I'm going to come in and just mix a little bit more green to it. And because that's still wet, that will just kind of naturally bleed together. I can scoop different parts to just make it a little bit more highlighted or areas, or I can go in and touch different parts just to add a little bit more depth to it. Some darker parts, see how it just kind of will expand and explode. I'm looking around to see where my leaves are. Right here's a leaf. Come in here and add a little bit of a brownie color. I'm going to touch the bottom here so it's just darker than the rest. I can see that I have got a leaf right here. So it's really just kind of playing around with these greens, having them all bleed and blend together. I'm not just sticking to the one green color. Here's a greeny color. And I think this leaf right here was supposed to come out, so I just have to fix this real quick. There we go. Okay, cool. So I want to have a little bit of burgundy in this, so I'm going to just mix that burgundy color that I really like. Add some red. Where's my purple? Add some purple to it. I even add a little bit of black. No, indigo. Black's, yeah, that's a pretty color. And I'm going to add this burgundy color to my flowers. And I'm going to do a couple layers. And I actually want to add a little bit of yellow into it. So let me just do that real quick. Ooh. Turned a little muggy. Yeah, pretty. So I'm going to do a little mixture of burgundy and yellow. Mixing my colors. And right here, you'll see I'm stopping because that's the dome of my flower. Doing the same thing that I did with my pumpkin. I'm gonna let these ones dry. That way I can have a little bit of layering and separation here. Okay, I'm gonna come in now that it's dry and kind of just repeat what I just did. With that burgundy, adding a little bit of yellow. And I want it to kind of look like it's tucked behind the pumpkin. And then right here, there should be adding some yellow. So the center here, I'm gonna do a little bit of a muggy yellow, brown center. And I'm just seeing here, I'm just using the very tip of my brush, just doing little dots. I'm gonna add just a hair of red, I think. I think the red will make it pop too. Just, yeah, I'm gonna touch a little bit of red in it. Here as well. Just using the very tip of my brush, blending everything together. Okay, so this is all dry, so I want to go in and do a second layer on top, but this time again with the same thing as the pumpkin, I want to make sure that my layers are kind of shining through. So I'm mixing up this burgundy color, having it just be a hair darker than what I put down. I'm going to do little lines and streaks just throughout different points, just using the very tip of my brush, just doing little lines coming down. Just give it a little bit more realism. I'm going to add a little bit more shadow to this lower flower. This one right here, a little bit of shadow. And right here to kind of make it look like it's under. So I want to add a lot more red to this flower down here, but I'm just repeating what I just did up there with this flower. Adding a little bit of burgundy in here to different spots while it's still wet. So I'm laying down my red and then just kind of covering it with a bit of a burgundy color, different points. Some highlight right here. Okay, so I'm gonna dry these because they look like they're still wet. Okay, and then just repeating what you just did for the rest of the flowers, the flower petals. And once you get a groove, you can actually get through this pretty quickly. So I'm gonna let these dry. And then same thing we just did over here, we can actually go in now with some details. Just little streaks, just kind of brings it to life. Little pop in realism. So let's do a kind of muggy, yellowy center as well. Okay, so the way to make this center kind of pop is to start with the outer part has to be darker. So let me dry this. And I just mixed a little bit of brown into that yellow I just used. So the center definitely has to be darker, and it will just start to kind of make the center pop a bit. And I'm using the very tip of my brush, and I'm going to be doing various layers here. Otherwise, all the colors would definitely just spread together and it would not add to the effect. More water in my brush. And I think the key as well is to not have too much water, because you really don't want it spreading absolutely everywhere. And I'm going to add a hair of black now for this last layer. And I'm going to put it right underneath those brown layers that I just put in. Making sure I'm still letting them shine through. I'm going to put this color right here as well, the blacky color. There we go. I feel like that really just pops now. Okay, so continuing on with what we already have down, I'm going to mix a little bit of brown and burgundy together for this part right here. Kind of like my twigs. So I like that it has a little bit of a reddish undertone to it. And I'm using my size 4 brush now, so I can get lots of fine details. Going all the way down. I'm going to repeat that with the twig that I have right here. And I got a twig right here too. Okay, so this is probably dry over here, so I can go in and touch different points just to make it pop a bit. Remembering that to make things pop, you don't want to completely cover everything that you just put down. You want to leave parts of it to shine through. Over here. Okay, cool. So you'll see here, I got a little bit of greenery, and then we are almost done. So I'm mixing some green as well into that color that I already had. I'm gonna come up now and go around the sleeve. And this time I'm gonna pull a little bit of a reddish, yellowish color to it. Okay, so just mixing up a little bit more darker greens. I can go in like right here and just add a little bit more love to this one. Making sure I'm still leaving that original color to shine through. Not completely covering everything. Rotating between different types of greens. Making sure you're blending everything pretty good. You can even touch the top parts. It's different parts of your leaves. Okay, so I feel pretty good about this. I feel really happy with how it turned out. If you enjoyed this video and learned some fun tips and tricks about blending and leaving layers to shine through, and I will see you in the next video.